We've now seen Jane Seymour's life from start to end. We've thought about her parents, we've thought about two of her siblings, we've thought about her time at court, her time as a sort of mistress with Henry, her pregnancy, her birth and her death. So for this final episode on Jane Seymour, we're going to think about her legacy. So we're going to look a little bit at portraits we have of her and think about her time, how she's depicted in the media and her badge. We're quite lucky with Jane when you compare it to Anne Boleyn in terms of actually having some portraits and a decent idea of how she may have looked. So firstly, we have this drawing, which was drawn from life at Windsor by Hans Holbein, either at the end of 1536 or very early in 1537. So it's believed that it was done before she knew that she was pregnant. So here we have a sketch from real life that was then used to create other portraits, which was a very common thing to do at the time. It was unusual for anybody to sit for multiple portraits or even to sit necessarily for a whole one. So off he went with his portrait sketch and created some other portraits. So this one here is probably the one you're most familiar with, the most famous one, again done by Holbein. It's not kept in England, it's kept in a gallery in Germany, I believe, and we can see here her hands are clasped, she's looking off to one side, which was standard. Serious face, again very standard, but we can see her status in the sort of quality of the fabric and in the jewels and in the cross type brooch that she has on her chest there. We can see her faith depicted. Another version of this painting, which resides in England in the National Portrait Gallery, which is unfinished but again appears to be Holbein's work, very similar but very different colours. So we have this real rich red colour of the gown, which again shows her status because it's not a colour that everybody would have been able to afford, and I really like this one. I know it's unfinished, the skin tones are unfinished, you can see some of the underdrawing coming through, and this one is a half portrait, but I love the colours, I love the gold detail on there, and again you can sort of see the richness of the fabric, and you can see the brooch there which symbolises her faith. We don't know exactly why it's unfinished. It may be that it was unfinished at the time of her death and then for whatever reason wasn't continued with. Henry did continue though to have Jane Seymour added into portraits. We also have this painting here, which may have been painted in her lifetime, but it certainly wasn't painted in the lifetime of Henry's parents. So this is the Whitehall portrait, the Whitehall mural portrait. So we obviously have Henry and Jane there, so it could have been painted to celebrate her wedding, her marriage to him, or the expectation of the coming heir. Obviously the two people above them, Henry's parents, Henry VII and Elizabeth of York, weren't obviously alive at this time, so this was quite a common thing to include people in portraits who were no longer living. So in this next portrait in the family of Henry VIII, we don't know who painted this, but it does have strong Holbein influences to it, or have a strong Holbein feel. So here we can obviously see Jane and Edward in the same portrait, which obviously didn't happen. She died when he was a few days old. This was painted around 1545, so towards the end of Henry's life really, and she's put back in there as a way to remember her and to sort of show the strength of the Tudor dynasty. And then in terms of her badge, so her badge, we have a phoenix rising from a tower with the Tudor roses around. Now the phoenix, which obviously would have been chosen prior to her death, is quite a sombre one when you look back on it in hindsight, this idea of dying and being reborn from the ashes. And on her grave she did have a phoenix, and she had this line written above it, which I'm just going to read so that I don't get it wrong, and it said, "Here lieth a phoenix, by whose death another phoenix gave breath. It is to be lamented that the world at once never knew two such." So drawing on the bittersweet situation that Henry was then faced with, that he finally had this son that he so desperately wanted, but through him being born he had lost his mother, his son's mother, his wife, and seemingly someone he cared a great deal about. And then finally we have seen Jane Seymour depicted in various different ways over the years, in various different films and TV shows, TV series. I'm not very good at keeping up with these. I do personally like the way Jane Seymour was depicted in Wolf Hall, because I like the way they managed to go from kind of the sort of the plain type bit, but then in other areas she was a lot more magnificent, which is something that we've been talking about over the last few days. Obviously she's in the show The Tudors as well, and there's probably a whole other host of depictions of her, so do let me know which one is your favourite. Feel free to recommend some, and I may get round to watching them at some point in the next decade. We shall see. My next video, which will be coming on Monday the 19th of May, is going to be starting 10 days looking at Anne of Cleves. Don't forget, you can find me at patreon.com/Tudor Tales. You can find me on TikTok, you can find me on Instagram, that's mainly my PhD work, but you would absolutely make my day if you would like this video and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.